I'm visiting here today with a very good friend of mine, marvelous author, Vic Mills. We're going to be talking about his most recent book. It's The Island of the Phoenix. It's an incredible read, and Vic, I'm really looking forward to talking with you about it.
I'm pleased to be here.
Just kind of quickly summarize the book for us so we can give people a flavor of what the book is about. Don't give away any secrets. You want them to buy it now. So just give us a summary of it.
It's really not a war story in my opinion. It's more of an action survival type of story. And I think it's where people of various services learn how to work together and seriously survive a very difficult situation that they were faced into. And that is being marooned on an island, uninhabited for the most part, and yet 50 miles inside enemy-held territory. That can be a little uncomfortable.
There's a piece of history here that you mention that I think is important to touch on. Now, we're all well aware that right after Pearl Harbor, we took Japanese Americans and interned them into camps, particularly on the western coast of the United States and also in Canada. But you mention that Japanese Americans who were visiting Japan for whatever reason were also in peril in Japan, and it stands to reason they would be. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's a very interesting question, and it certainly has a long route into the history of our country. In researching this, I went to our local library and dug up a microfiche of their computer system. I found that there was also a very active student exchange program up through about the middle of 1941. Mm-hmm. And that they were sending Japanese American students over to Japan, and then in turn some of them students in Japan would come back to Japanese families here. Going in towards the end of November, the Japanese government rounded up all of the Japanese Americans and Caucasians and put them into camps. Basically, they forced them in either to conscription into the military of the Japanese Americans, or they were in court for spies and so on. This little blurb that I found was invaluable of information. It was only about a quarter page, and it couldn't have had more than maybe 150, 200 words in it. And it also talked about how many of the Japanese American men, 18 and older at that time, going into the military, of the Japanese military forced into it, quite often would get into sensitive areas of the military, howbeit pilots, aircraft pilots, and so on. And so most of them were able to, because of they were Americans, they were born in America, sometimes second generation. It was their country, and they would fight to defend American lives at their own peril, both from us shooting at them and
right.
from their own comrades finding out what's going on and being shot by them as well. So they were in a situation that took a lot of guts, I think, a lot of courage to do that.
Well, I'm going to take the viewers back in time. When you first started this interview, you mentioned that we had some people marooned on an island, and I'm going to give just a little piece of information here, and I'm going to say that one of those people marooned on the island is a Japanese American, and I'm not going to go any further than that, but it certainly made for a fascinating way that he got there, and it makes for a very interesting story as to how it unfolds on the island and how he's reintegrated, if you will, into the lifestyle of American military since he's wearing a Japanese uniform. It's an amazing piece that you have woven, and you really awakened something with me when I began reading the history. And I thought, well, of course, there would be Japanese Americans living in Japan or visiting in Japan. I had no idea, though. And when the war started, it's fascinating that you've uncovered that for us. Let me ask you, since this book contains a lot of aviation, it's a lot of war history, it's a very colorful adventure, Who's your audience? Who are you targeting with this book?
Well, it's an interesting question. Of course, I hope everybody would buy it, but I think history buffs, those that really like history, particularly World War II history, military history, anybody that likes airplanes, you know. I think it's somewhat wide open, but it's to a particular audience, I guess.
I can see this being fascinating even to somebody who just likes to pick up a James Clavell novel because it's well researched. It's got a lot of great action in it.
You put me in awfully good company there.
Well, you're working on it, my friend. This is a really good read. Be sure and go out and get it. Island of the Phoenix by Vic Mills. It's an incredible read. You'll love it.